we have a new guest on, and it is the first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athlete
That's a strong word, yeah.
that I've got on the podcast. Hopefully not the last. I definitely want to get more BJJ guys and girls on, because that's something that I'm right into at the moment. He is a brown belt at Pachecho in Pachecho. I still can't pronounce it right. Pachecho in Warriewood on the northern beaches in Sydney. He's an instructor there as well. Got a little bit of time off right now, but when I started at Pachecho, he was one of the first instructors that ran the classes that I have and that I took. He's also a photographer. He's keeping that a little bit on the down low at the moment, but I did get him to shoot the Mona gym quite recently. He's a Canon shooter and a Fuji shooter, so versatile with 2 cameras. He's not on Instagram at the moment, although I'm trying to convince him to get back on.
Few people like him. I'll be back.
His nickname, he goes by the name of Zack, but his real name is Zoran Covic.
Zoran Covic.
Oh, man.
Nice try.
I tried as best I could there. Tell me again.
Zoran Covic.
Zoran Covic.
Yeah.
Covic. Where does that name come from?
Serbia.
I
was born here, but my family is all Serbian. So I was first generation born outside of Serbia.
Yeah. Wow. So your parents came to Australia when they were how old?
That is a very good question. I can't remember. It's about 40 years ago.
Okay.
My grandparents came here with my mum and my dad, and I mean, I was born here, but yeah, it's probably about 40 years ago they migrated over. They actually came over on a boat, so it was before planes and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They were sailing over,
Yeah,
basically.
grandfather spent a month on a boat just to get here, and I'm forever grateful. I've had this conversation with quite a few friends because growing up here, family wanted to hold on to Serbian values, so I didn't really grow up with much of an Australian upbringing. It was very Serbian oriented. In fact, today's Serbian Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So we run off the Old Testament. Not that I'm religious, but we run off the Old Testament. They got here about 40 years ago. It was just my mother's father and mother with her sister, my auntie, and my old man. So a very small family over here. Yeah.
And what language do they speak? And do you speak it?
Serbian, yeah.
Yeah, Serbian,
So even though I was born here, Serbian was primarily my first tongue.
Yeah.
And learnt English. I mean, it's like anyone that's born here with a different sort of heritage. It's easier to learn English because you're in Australia. So at some stage you're going to pick up English regardless. So my folks made sure that they taught me Serbian.
Yeah.
When I was really young, and I never lost it.
Yeah. You still practice it a bit?
I did up until recently. Mostly I would speak to my grandmother. She had a stroke earlier this year, so we don't really talk much because she's lost her speech, but mostly it was with her. On Christmas Eve, just about a week or so ago, I had a barbecue with Dio and all the guys from the gym. Raul's wife is Macedonian. She speaks Serbian and Macedonian, so I had a conversation with her, which was fantastic for me. And an old friend of mine, Jelena, she was there as well. So the three of us got to converse in Serbian, which I haven't done for a while. So it was good for me, good to sort of keep my practice up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's fun when you get to speak.
It is, yeah. It's fun.
Your native tongue,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's further and further between the times I get to speak Norwegian these days. It's really only when I speak on the phone with my parents back home and my sisters, but because I used to have some Norwegian friends here, but now they're all moved on. So
is that your first language?
Yeah, that's my first language as well. Yeah, but you have a third language too, right? Do you speak Portuguese?
I'm trying. I know all the wrong words. I'm trying. It's hard. I mean, I understand a lot of the words, but forming sentences and understanding is very difficult. If people are having a conversation, I can kind of sometimes pick up what they're talking about.
Okay.
But forming sentences is very, very difficult for me. Also with the Portuguese language, I find that the past tense, present tense, and future is for me is just baffling. I can't work it out yet.
Yeah.
But I haven't received any formal training. I'm picking it all up off the mats. Yes. So
that's right.
If it comes to like jiu-jitsu, I can direct people in Portuguese to some degree. You know, if I can see an arm that's free, I can yell out, grab the arm, break the arm, whatever you got to do, choke them out, etc., etc. But to ask someone for a lift to the shops, couldn't do it.
Well, you fooled me because when you're at when you're on the mats with us and you speak Portuguese or just yelling stuff out of Portuguese, maybe I'm like, that's mad.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu related,
Yeah.
I can do it, but anything beyond that, it's a little trickier. I think I'd need to do some form of formal training. I'd have to go do classes and pick it up that way.
Well, it should be pretty easy for us because we get exposed to it so much at Pachecho.
Yeah.
They speak. There's so many Brazilians there, and they speak Brazilian.
They do
Portuguese.
They
a lot.
definitely do, but the accents is where it gets tricky as well.
Oh, okay.
And this for me is just fascinating. But if you look at, like, for example, I know Wesley's going to laugh when he hears this, but if you say if you see a good-looking girl, you're going to say in Sao Paulo, which is where most of the boys are from, you'd say gostosa, and it's the way they say is gostosa. But if you're from Rio, it's gostosa. So there's a whole different, it's completely different. So, and then when you're from the south, it's different again. When you're from the north, it's different again. Everyone's got different accents, and the way that they talk is different. So primarily I understand, I suppose, if you're from Sao Paulo, I can understand you a lot easier than if you're from Rio. Yeah. And then you've got, Thiago, he's from the country, and the way they talk is just horrible. It's filthy. So you can't understand half of what he was saying. When I first started learning that, I was picking most of my lingo up from Thiago, and it got to a point where Dio and everyone was like, stop talking like that, man. That's filth. We don't talk like that.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, they were being cheeky.
That's funny.
It's not genuine, but had to let that one go.
Do you find, okay, so this might be a really dumb question, but for someone who doesn't speak Portuguese or Serbian, do you find the pronunciation or the way that you roll your tongue and the way you pronounce it is similar-ish, yeah?
There's the way we roll our R's is very similar to the way they roll their R's. Certain letters, like for example, my surname Covic, even though it's a C at the start and a C at the end, they're actually two different letters. They're pronounced differently, like ch and ch. Yeah. But generally, I say that the Australian tongue can't pronounce those two letters. I've tried many times to teach friends; they just can't do it. Yeah. But having slight similarities in letters that are completely different by sound and by the way they look on paper has definitely helped me with the Portuguese. The best ones are açaí. You know the C with the little thing underneath. It's pronounced as açaí, whereas most people say açaí. Acai. That's the big one. Yeah, it's definitely helped me. But to anyone out there that's trying to learn Portuguese, it's a bit silly, but I actually mock their accent. So if you want to,
so you exaggerate it, you mean?
Yes, definitely. Like you wouldn't say. Like you wouldn't, okay, so like let's say you're watching the soccer and you say passa bola, like pass the ball. You wouldn't say just like passa bola. You yay mano, passa bola. You got to, and I'm mocking them. Like it's somewhat rude, but at the same time, I get complimented on how good my words sound when I speak because of that accentuation. So you kind of take the piss a little bit, and it actually sounds really good. I've had a few people sort of look at you like, oh, are you Brazilian? No, oh, your accent's real good. And you're just like, I'm just taking the piss, mate.
That's mad though. But I love that in the way for you to learn the pronunciation of another language and just having a crack. A good example as well is I had some French at school, and when we went to France with a couple of mates, some of them were trying to speak French, but they kind of just pronounced it the way they would pronounce it in Norwegian or / kind of English. Yep. But if you put on way more of a French sound to it, and you completely stuffed up the words, or even if you kind of had an English word but you pronounced it in a French accent, they loved it. Yeah. It's way better.
I had a different experience in France, but definitely with the accents and that, for sure. Yeah, I found it helps me a lot.
It's more fun as well.
Yeah. It's like if you ever try speaking Serbian, you'll have to mimic us, and if you want to do that, just talk real angry, real loud, and you'll sound Serbian.
What's well, you got to give us something in Serbian now. What's a good sentence?
Pa, jebi ga, ne znam što da kažem. Kad dugo nisam pričao srpski, pa teško mi je. So I just said, fuck, I don't know what to say, but essentially it's been a while since I've spoken Serbian, so it's a little tricky for me.
Is it rude to say that it sounds a little bit Russian?
No, not at all.
It sounds similar.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the same kind of language.
Well, it's that whole Eastern Bloc, right?
Yeah.
Like it helped me when I was traveling in Europe too. My reading of Cyrillic is not fantastic, but it does, like I can read Cyrillic. So when we got lost in Czech Republic and all that sort of stuff, it was, I can look up and read and sort of work my way out and where to go and things like that. This was back before Google Maps. So reading signs and that, it's definitely been beneficial for me.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Where did your nickname Zock come from? Is that a Portuguese thing?
No. I'm going to tell you what I think it is, and it's basically, if you know someone called Bradley, you call them Brad. If you know a Steven, you call them Steve.
Steve-O.
Yeah, Steve-O, yeah, 100%. For some reason, Zoran translates into Zock. I don't know how, what, when, where, or why, but my
Zoran.
Yeah.
Zock.
Yeah, just Zock is what they call you.
Yeah.
So there's like if you're in Serbia, Zoran's, John Smith essentially. And from Zoran you get Zock. So there's nothing special
in Serbia, they would call you Zock as well.
If you're my friend, yeah.
Yeah.
So generally my friends will call me Zock. People that don't know me I always introduce myself as Zoran. But the Brazilians gave me the name Zoquinho. Which you probably heard at the gym a lot. Yeah.
What does that mean?
So in Portuguese, adding inho to the end of something means it's little. So Zoquinho, they think it's hilarious.
Little Zock,
right? It's far from the case.
That's
why like little guys like I don't know if you ever did you meet Vitor before he moved on? So he used to train with us a couple of years ago. He's now a black belt professor. He's an amazing athlete. He always says, "Oh, I'm the little guy," which at 85 kilos, he's not little, but he's a little bit shorter than most people. But he's just so stocky, and when you wrestle with this guy, it's like a one-man hurricane. There's nothing little about this guy. So you would call Vitor Vital. So Al means big. So even though he's small frame, he is actually quite large, in attitude and essence. Same with you wouldn't know him. He doesn't train with us anymore. I always knew him as Rodrigo. So actually, that's another thing about the Brazilians. The R at the start of a word is actually pronounced as a H.
Yeah.
So, Henzo Gracie.
Henzo, Henner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're not really R's, they're H's. So Rodrigo is not like Rodrigo, it's Rodrigo. But I always knew him as Rodrigo. And I didn't understand why. It's because the guy's like 7 foot tall. He's just big dude. So there'd be Rodrigo, who was the normal guy, Rod, and then you had Rodrigo, who was just this massive dude. So if you ever hear like Zoquinho, Rodrigo, things like this, Vital, it's all about big, small, and it's not always accurate either. Zoquinho.
Yeah, they can do the opposite. It'd be funny.
Yeah.
What if there's an O in the end?
An O in the end?
Yeah.
It's just as far as I know, it's just stock standard.
Oh, so that's me. Kimo,
yeah.
I'm stock standard.
But they add I can't work this out, but they add like vowels to the end of a lot of sentences as well. So it could be like you've heard army bar. It's not just an arm bar; it's an army bar. I don't understand why they do all that. So Kimo could just be them. Just a language thing. It might not necessarily be.
Yeah.
Whether you're big or small.
I haven't got a
short
proper
or tall.
nickname there yet. Maybe I haven't been there long enough.
Oh, you'll get one. Everyone gets one. It's not usually a good one either.
True.
It's like Jacob. Jacob got dubbed karkara, which is a bird, and everyone's got a different reason as to why that particular bird suits Jacob. I think it's because of the block head. They've both got square heads. Thiago always says it's because when they walk, they waddle. But, yeah. So it's not always a nice thing, but he's been dubbed karkara, so that's his name now. So,
that's pretty funny, though.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah. I'll be happy with that one for as long as that lasts.
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah. So when we're on this topic, I've got to ask, when did you start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I actually didn't start with Pachecho. I'm starting my 8th year at Pachecho, but I trained for, I'm going to say about a year. It was in the same complex, funnily enough.
Oh, in Warriewood?
Yeah.
So you grew up in Warriewood?
Yes. My grandparents have a home on Sydney Road in Warriewood. They've been there since they died, essentially. I was born into that home. From there, my parents had an apartment down in Narrabeen, so I grew up in Narrabeen, but always back and forth, and then eventually ended up with my grandmother, and then so on and so forth. When it was, I don't know how old I was. I'm going to say 27, 28 type of thing. I was doing boxing at the time, which I'd started to lose weight. Fell in love with the sport.
With boxing?
Yeah, absolutely loved it. Still do. I suck at it, but I'd still train it because it's just fun. Lot to learn. In between, I remember I was at the pub one night, and like most people, you're watching the UFC and you're thinking, geez, what's this? And then all of a sudden they went to the ground, and I remember someone, I think it was a BJ Penn fight, and there was just blood everywhere, and then all of a sudden it was just a rear naked choke, and the guy went to sleep. I was like, how did that happen? That was really cool.
BJ Penn choked out someone.
I'm pretty sure, from memory, I'm pretty sure BJ Penn did. And he just, the way he did it was like everything that was happening was so vicious and so bloody and just so gory and violent. And then there was just this peaceful moment where he put this bloke to sleep. And I thought, wow, how amazing is that? In the midst of all this chaos, there's a moment of just clarity. And it just appealed to me. I don't know why. And at the time I was at the pub with a few friends, and my friend Rob, he goes, I can teach you how to do that. Sort of looked at him, and Rob was always a quiet, unassuming bloke. I said, how are you going to teach me how to choke? He's like, I just got my blue belt. And, and he started talking to me about jiu-jitsu. I thought, you know what, that'd be a great way to cross-train from boxing, do something different, help elevate my boxing. Because at this time I thought maybe I would be good at it one day. You know, how wrong I was.
At boxing, you mean?
Yeah. And jiu-jitsu, mind you. And Rob we started talking, and he explained that, leverage and choking, and it just fascinated me. So he invited me down to a class, and geez, I'll never forget it. It was like a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the car and I rang him to say I'm here. I should have walked into the gym, but you know what it's like when you walk
first time in a new
fight
place.
gym for the first time. It's very intimidating.
Any gym,
definitely. But when you are a not very confident sort of, overweight guy, that I was struggling, So made the phone call. He didn't pick up. Oh yes, he's not picking up. I can get out of here. And I looked at the time, and it was like 4:58, and I said, I'll give him till 5, and then I'm out of here. So if he doesn't come, fuck him, I'm leaving. 4:59 and 55 seconds. There was a tap on my window, and I looked up. There's Rob. Oh shit! So we went inside. Everyone in there was really nice. It was actually Lang's MMA at the time. So Anthony was obviously in Manly, as he still is today, but he'd had he'd had a partnership with someone else, and I don't know all the details, but they were in Warriewood. I remember walking in and getting put down on the floor, and we're all in a circle, the warm-up's done, we're all talking about jiu-jitsu, and I was a bit sort of lost and not paying attention, a bit nervous. And the instructor goes, go on, we'll get the new guy in. I was like, shit, okay. So walked up, sat down. He goes, all right, lay down. beg your pardon? He's going, lay down. I went, all right, lay down. And he sits on top of me, straddles me, and I've never done any BJJ. I've never done any wrestling. I've never really done anything outside of the little bit of boxing I'd done.
Yeah. So you didn't even know it was called a mount at the time?
I had no idea. Yeah. No, there was just a big dude that was sitting on my lap. And I thought, this is not what I anticipated. This is not what I signed up for. What the fuck am I doing here? And Rob was pissing himself because he knew how uncomfortable I must have felt, because everyone does that first time, right? Like it's something.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Everyone starts in that same spot. And anyway, so he was talking about essentially an armbar from mount, and he was explaining all the details, and then bang, he just whipped on this armbar. And I remember my arm went out and hyperextended, and he let it go. He wasn't, it was nice. He knew I'd never done it before, but also like when you're new and you feel that hyperextension, you think, oh, he's going to break my arm, but really it's nothing.
Yeah. Which hasn't really been put on yet.
There's nothing happening. You're just panicking,
Yeah.
But it did, and my arm hyperextended, and I knew, honest to God, I knew straight away, that's it. This is me for the next 10 years. I'm not doing anything else. And I trained there for nearly a year, and there was a change. It was no longer Lang's. It changed names. It changed owners. A lot of it changed. To be honest, it didn't suit me. Not for any good or bad reasons. It just wasn't for me anymore. So I decided that's it. I'm going back to boxing. So I went and commit to training with my old trainer, Paul Anderson. I don't know if you ever know. If you ever meet Paul, he's a gentleman and a scholar. He's a special guy. Went back to training with Paul, who over the following sort of 12 to 24 months, just like he made me realize I wasn't made of glass. And once I found that confidence, I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to go back to jiu-jitsu. I actually have an old friend of mine, Ben Fisk, who is currently training at Legacy in Freshwater, Manly, Brookvale, wherever that suburb is. Yeah. Legacy, they're part of the Wimp to Warrior Academy.
Yeah.
They're the guys that do the jiu-jitsu for the Wimp to Warrior. He's now a brown belt. He's been with them for probably nearly 10 years, I'd say. And I rang Ben and said, mate, I want to get back to jiu-jitsu. Can I come train with you? And he said, oh, you're still living in Warriewood? Yeah. He said, oh, mate, go see Dio. Who's Dio? He said, trust me, go see Dio. I said, all right, where is he? He said, I don't know. They're in Warriewood somewhere. They've got a gorilla. Oh, what do you mean they've got a gorilla? He goes, oh, no, the logo. I said, oh, okay, the logo is a gorilla. I was like,
they got one at the back that you have to roll the gorilla.
You got to beat him it's like initiation. If you don't beat the gorilla, you can't train here. It was, but I'd never heard or seen of it. Had no idea what he was talking about. So I started Googling. I found a Facebook page. When I saw the logo, something in my brain clicked. I went, oh, there is a sign down at Vuko Place. It was just a little white board about this big. It was tiny little fold out thing, like an A-frame. And I remember driving past it going, what? It didn't say jiu-jitsu. It was just a picture of it was a picture of a gorilla and it said Pachecho, but before you learn how to speak, you're calling it Pachecho. I've heard every version of it, and I thought, oh, what's this? And again, I was really nervous. One night I checked out the timetable. It was, funnily enough, a fundamentals class, which 8 years later would be mine. I drove down, and it was where the council, we call it council chambers. We used to skate down there a lot. So, the council offices down at the end of Vuko, at the end of our street, so that cul-de-sac next to the cinemas. There used to be just a tiny little place in there. I think we had, I'm going to say like 90 square meters of mats, and compared to now, it was real. We used to call favela jiu-jitsu because it was just in a warehouse, and when you couldn't open the door fully because Dio wanted mat space. He didn't care about where you're going to walk. I don't care where you walk. We need space for the mats. So it was all about jiu-jitsu. And I remember driving past, and I mean you've done our warm-ups, right? And coming from other gyms where if you did a lap of the warm-up and came back and sat down, you're just like, oh, man, I'm a bit tired tonight. Yeah, it's all right. No dramas. Take it easy. These guys were it's like an army unit. They were running in uniform around the mats, and then they were front rolling in their two lines, which we do, back rolls and the side rolls. And I was just watching just like from my car, from the shadows. I didn't want to be spotted. And I remember just thinking, fuck, who are these guys, man? These guys are very serious. There's this doesn't look like a fun environment. These guys just want to train, And I thought, oh, fuck, you know what? I'll give it a go. And I remember I turned up, I walked in. I think Thiago was the first person I ever saw. I think he was the first class I ever had as well. And I did one class, and I just knew straight away, I want to train with these guys, because it was no nonsense, like everyone. The first thing I noticed, which actually to this day I try to still enforce quite heavily, is if I walk into that gym, I mean, I've been there nearly a decade. I tend to think I generally know everybody there. So if I see someone I don't know, I walk up and introduce myself. And that happened to me on my first day. These guys were walking up and introducing themselves to me. Now, I've been to a few other fight gyms and just normal gyms, and no one does that. No one comes up and says, oh, you're new. Hey, I'm Zock. Nice to meet you. Let me show you around. These are the rules. If this happens, da-da-da. Never experienced that before. But at Pachecho, that's the first thing I noticed. And again, being overweight, unconfident, it made me feel welcome.
It's such an important part.
Did you notice that when you...
Yeah, and I knew, I mean, having been a trainer and training at a place like the Mona Gym, where that is a big part of the community as well.
I noticed that too.
I knew that, like, I wasn't as surprised as maybe some people would be, because I take it a little bit for granted sometimes, but definitely, I mean, at either of those places, when you see a new face, you go and introduce yourself. Yeah. And that's not just the instructor or whoever's leading the class, right. It's everyone.
Everyone, that's right.
Having that built into the community, that is a really, really strong sign.
100%. And then the other thing is, let's say I did walk in and people introduced themselves to me. They then said, go sit on the mats, stretch out, class will start in 5 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes. And people were coming in after me. And when they'd walk in, they'd step onto the mats and they'd bow as they stepped onto the mats, which, it's a little bit dicky, but it's a martial arts thing. I think it is tradition, yeah. And I'm a big fan of it. I think it's more discipline. I think that it's an important aspect in human development,
I do have a thought on that, because obviously at the Mono Gym, which is a functional strength and conditioning place, we don't bow when we go into the gym.
That'd be a bit odd.
But we also don't roll or spar with each other.
Yeah.
I think when you're in a space where you actually end up sparring, I guess you can call it that every now and then, like you kind of fighting together, I think it's more important to have those traditions and that respect in place.
Yep.
Because you don't want to, you want to be friends with everyone after. Because sometimes, someone's ego might be a little bit hurt because they got beaten by someone they didn't want to get beaten by or whatever. Some people are like that. Some people have egos when they come in, right?
Everyone does, Kim.
Yeah.
Everyone
and then, but having that tradition to bow when you come in, shake everyone's hand when you're done, and watch people, you look them in the eye, you shake their hand and thank them for the class, whatever happened.
Yep. That
puts an end to that class and that sparring session, and you shouldn't carry whatever happened with you. If you got armbarred or rear naked choked or whatever, you shouldn't carry that with you home in the evening and be like, God damn, like you're sitting there eating dinner, you're annoyed about something. It's like, it's just training.
Yes. That's a lot of people don't realize that, Kim. There's a difference between training and fighting.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
big difference.
Big difference. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. And we've had people come through the gym, and mate, there are days where I'm guilty, where I don't want to train, I want to fight. You know what I mean? There are those days, but like you said, it's not the time nor the place. If you want to fight, go fight. There's competitions you can go to. There's other avenues you can go down. You can go to MMA open sparring days, and there's plenty of options out there. So if you want to fight, go fight. Find the right place for it. But that's not what we're about, man.
For me, I have zero interest in fighting. I enjoy watching the UFC, but zero interest in getting myself in a fight. But I love training.
Yes.
And training is fun.
Yep, I'm the same.
So, yeah.
And I think we're lucky, man. We're surrounded by a very similar mindset at Pachecho. I think Dio ensures that stays that way, because we've had guys come through. There's been a few guys, especially when I was white belt, just every class, you're showing a technique. Oh, that's really nice, but what would you do in the street? How would you deal with that in the street?
Someone elbowed you in the face.
Yeah. Someone's like, what would you do if someone came to you with a knife on the street and said, give me your wallet? I said, I could probably give him a wallet and leg it, man. You know what I mean? I wouldn't confront the guy. Take it. It's all yours, But there's a lot of places and people that have that ego and that I don't know, it's just like this want to, in my opinion, it's just ego. It's all ego.
I might want to ask you, hopefully it's not a too controversial question here, but when I started jiu-jitsu, I tried a lot of different places, and I started in Melbourne. I didn't start here on the beaches. And some places seem to have an emphasis on this tradition that BJJ is for self-defense. You have to come in here and learn the self-defense part before you get into the, let's maybe call it the sport aspect of jiu-jitsu. So my question is, would you say there's a big difference on the self-defense and the sport? And how is it important to be proficient in both as you progress through the belt levels?
It's a matter of opinion, in my opinion. I think it is, personally. I know that we predominantly focus on the sport aspect of jiu-jitsu, but that's more so because a lot of us compete. And also I think if you got to be careful with that whole self-defense thing, because, and again, this is just my opinion, okay, so this is not gospel, but I find that you put false confidence into people, and you've got to be careful, because realistically, if you were to engage in a fight, I don't think getting on the ground, sitting down and trying to play a guard is a very intelligent thing to do at all.
Especially for someone like me that weighs 70 kilos, and if there's a 95 kilo strong dude,
that's right. Like it's
definitely shouldn't pull guard.
100%. Don't get out of there, mate. You know what I mean? So I think it's important, because I've heard stories of like a pub fight about to break out. Two guys eyeing each other out, and then one guy yells, "I do MMA." What the fuck? And what he does is he runs and jumps guard. He runs and jumps, and for those who don't know, he wraps his legs around this guy's waist and brings
voluntarily
the fight to
goes
the ground.
at the bottom.
Exactly. Yeah. And what the other guy did was not go down, because you don't just, like when you when you're in jiu-jitsu, there's like it's almost like you need the other person to engage. It's actually quite difficult to put someone on the ground and hold them down if they know, especially if they know what they're doing. Like for them to get up is quite easy. So there's a degree of like you both need to play that game. So this guy's jumped guard in a pub thinking the other guy's going to go down to his knees and start passing, but he didn't. He just stood there because he's a strong man, right? Like he's at the pub, he's full of piss, he's got confidence now. And instead of engaging in the fight, what he did was stand still. The guy sort of came up to him and he just lifted him, dropped him on the ground like, Rampage Jackson, knocked the guy out.
Yeah.
You're like, great, you've been doing MMA for 12 years, you jumped guard and got knocked out. Like that to me is just stupid. So to answer your original question, I think it's very important to understand the self-defense aspects of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I also think it's important to know whether you're in this to be a fighter or whether you're doing it for other reasons. I personally was very attracted to the whole self-defense aspect of it at the start, the fighting aspect of it. But in time, man, I just fell in love with jiu-jitsu. There's so much more to it. If you take, like it's all simulated. You take away the punches, the kicks, it's not real. We're wearing gis. It's not that often that you're going to have all those grips accessible to you. So that in itself is a little bit, make-believe.
Unless you're in winter in Norway and everyone wears a coat.
Well, I mean, that's what someone said, training in the gis, it's just stupid. What's the point? You're right. I mean, I'm never going to get into a real fight where a guy's wearing a pair of jeans or a jacket. Like, come on, man. It's going to happen, Yeah. But then if I do ever get into a fight with a guy, and I hope I never do, wearing a pair of jeans and a jacket, I'm not going to lay down and pull De La Riva guard on him, am I? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a bit silly. So it's a tough question to answer. I think you definitely need to respect the fact that you're still fighting. And actually, this is something I've tried to tell friends of mine at the gym, and when I teach, I try to impart this knowledge as well. And this is again just my opinion. But when I'm playing the sport of jiu-jitsu, I still treat it like a fight. And I think that, I mean, obviously being the bigger guy as well, guard is not my preferred sort of go-to. I don't like being on my back. I prefer to be on top. So I'm always trying to be on top. And no matter what's happening in the game of jiu-jitsu, I try to stay in an advantageous position so that if something goes wrong, I can get out of there real quick with minimal damage, or I can just control the guy, hold them there so that if I wanted to damage them, you could. But again, it's just a mindset, man. It's a choice that you make. Yeah. It's I'd hate to receive my black belt from Dio one day and then get into a real fight, which heaven forbid, I don't want to do that, and then not do anything, play this silly sport, jiu-jitsu, consider myself a black belt, and then just get whooped out there. I think that it's important to know.
You do get a big advantage though to anyone else because you're in a physical engagement, even though it's sports per se, you're in physical engagement every week, day in, day out. So you're used to managing distance, controlling another person, and that in itself helps to some degree with the self-defense,
100%.
Right?
Just staying calm.
That's another thing as well.
I went out for lunch once with, she used to train with us, Yelena, and her sisters. We went to like Church Point. It was one of the cafes down there. Really nice, having just a nice feed. And then the way this place worked was if you wanted a drink, you kind of walked back into like a little corner store. You bought your drink from the fridge and you went and sat down at your place and you had your feed. I was in the store waiting in line to buy my drink. And there was, I don't know, she couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old in front of me waiting to buy her drink. And then just outside, there was, I'm going to say like a dad with a son-in-law and a daughter and a mum. And these two guys, they just started like yelling, and I thought, this can escalate pretty quick. And then out of nowhere, the old boy just turns around and just goes bang and just punches the son-in-law or whatever he was in the face. It was out of nowhere. It was middle of the day on a Saturday in Church Point, not what you'd anticipate. But he's just chocked this bloke, and the guys like tumble back in, and then the old man's running after him, and they're having this scuffle in the shop. And the little girl in front of me, it kind of was heading towards her, and she was freaking out, poor thing. Like her mum and dad must have been out in the car while she ran in and got a drink, and she was freaking out. And what I noticed, and I mean, I'm no hero by no stretch, but I just stood in front of her, and right behind me, these guys were going bananas at each other on the ground and standing up and punching and kicking and screaming. And I remember I looked at her and I said, don't worry, it's all good. No one's going to hurt you. And she went, really? And I said, you got nothing to worry about. And I just turned around and I stood in front of her, and it was, I mean, the guys probably could have beaten me up. He probably, by no stretch am I the victor.
Unbeatable.
Here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By no stretch. But knowing that I've been around this a lot now. I just stood there and I was completely calm, completely rational, completely present. That was the gift that I learned from jiu-jitsu. It's just that in the moment of chaos, there's that clarity, and I love that. I absolutely love that. So that while it was all going on, I was able to just stand in front and just say, "Don't worry, it's all good.
Yeah,
nothing to worry about."
How did that fight break up? Did they just calm
like
down?
Most of them do. They got gassed and just couldn't throw any more punches, man. That's it's like I always say as well. I'm not a good fighter, man.
Yeah.
I'm not. I really am not. They're like you saw Cannon when he was out recently. I've been doing this a long time, man. I put a lot of effort into this, and I try to acquire as much knowledge as I can, and I try to make it as practical as I can. But there's levels, and then someone like him comes along and just makes me feel like an amateur again. And I think a lot of the people that are out there in the street, like, what's the longest round you've done at jiu-jitsu? Sparring?
We've had a lot of open mats over the holidays. It's felt like I've done some rounds that are 25 minutes, but they probably were just 8 minutes.
No, they probably would be 25 minutes, mate. Like, you think about that.
Yeah.
Let's call it 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Your ordinary person that goes down the street, they don't do anything for 8 minutes. Like, I've been training with Alessio recently, as you know.
Yeah.
He's getting me to do
chocolate box.
Yeah. He's getting me to do like EMOMs and AMPRAPs and all that stuff I've never done before. It's quite fascinating, but it's an 8 minute thing. And at most, people will do 8 minutes on a bike, 8 minutes on a rower, 8 minutes wall balling, whatever.
Just slow, whatever.
But 8 minutes wrestling, good luck to you. And 8 minutes throwing punches, mate, good luck to you.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not going to...
People don't understand.
They don't get it, mate.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
We see that when new people come in, brand new white belts, and they start rolling or sparring or wrestling or whatever you want to call it, and let's say we do 5 minute rounds, like they are burnt out after 90 seconds, like because they so tense,
hold the grips, like I don't want to let go,
shaking for 90 seconds. I'm like, that's it's not really going to help you. It's having an understanding of time for me from previous training. It has been really helpful going into those sparring rounds because I know 5 minutes sounds, for someone who's uneducated, 5 minutes sounds like nothing. They're like, I can go as hard as I can for 5 minutes.
It's an eternity.
Like, mate, you have no idea. Go 5 minutes as hard as you want on the air bike.
Yeah.
That's going to lengthen your life because it's going to be the slowest 5 minutes you've ever had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even with boxing, again, like that's a whole different world. Like you think about the amateurs that do 3 2-minute rounds. And you go to an event and most people at the end, they go, oh, is that it?
Nothing.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That guy's been training for 6 months for that fight, man.
Yeah.
Go do what he just did. It's not easy. I remember when I was boxing, my claim to fame was I did 3 3-minute rounds. That's the best of, like,
that's long.
Oh my God. It was like, I thought I'd climb Mount Everest. That's how happy I was with that. But it's only 9 minutes.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
The way I explain it to someone, if I watch the UFC with someone who doesn't really watch fighting, and they think a fight, like, a round is, that's nothing. I always tell them, like, have a look at the athletes and see how quickly they're pouring sweating.
Yeah.
They're sweating so much in the first minute, 90 seconds. But by that point, they're already drenched, right?
Yep.
And I say, like, when's the last time you were sweating that much? And what did you do to get to that point? Like, that's the exertion that they put out. And because you're scared a little bit as well, right? There's some fear in there.
Adrenaline plays a huge part.
Yeah. You're working hard, even though it doesn't look like you're working. You're managing the distance and you're worried you're going to get kicked in the head. You're going to start sweating.
Yep. 100%.
Quickly.
Yeah. That's, it's the whole, and again, with jiu-jitsu competitions, it's not, when you do boxing and MMA and that, you go out, you have 3 rounds, 4 rounds, 5 rounds, whatever it is, and you get one opponent. Whereas in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the competition format's different. So first of all, you very rarely know who you're fighting. I know you can look at the brackets and you can stalk them down on Facebook and people do all that sort of stuff. But realistically, if you haven't fought them before, you probably don't know who they are. You don't know what to expect. So it's not like there's footage you can go and watch and sort of understand what they're going to do. So it's very random in that sense. But also there's multiple opponents, So there's days where I think the most I ever did was 7 matches in a day, and they were 7-minute rounds because I was at adult purple belt. So 7 sevens for
7 minutes.
7 sevens, mate. And for a guy like me, that as big as I am, and I'm 37 this year, it's no easy feat. Then you've got people like Wesley. Wesley's division. It was Gally. Gally had 9 9 rounds at white belt, 9 matches in a day. No, 5 minute rounds, yeah. And I think Wesley's done, same sort of thing, 6 sixes or something like that. It's just outrageous. And that's, again, very different. So with what we were saying before about, how that fight stop in the shop, they just gassed out.
Yeah.
You've got to learn to pace yourself. And again, it just takes time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the competitions you've done. I don't know your competitive history, so you'll have to help me out here. What's a tournament that you can tell me some good stories from?
Okay, so straight claim to fame. I met Robert Whittaker in the final of a competition in Sutherland one time.
Was that Grappling Industries or something?
It was like a Sydney Cup or something like that. So Australian Federation there's different federations, there's different competitions. So you've got the International Federation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they run their competitions.
IBJJF.
Yep, exactly. You've got AFBJJ, Australian Federation, they run their competitions. You've got Grappling Industries, and they run their competitions. So you're always bouncing left and right.
Yeah.
That particular one was a Sydney Cup, which was AFBJJ. And in the open weights, so you've also got within Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, you've got your weight division. Excuse me. So I'm considered, funnily enough, ultra heavyweight, so 97 plus kilos. And then they do what's called an absolute division, and that is basically open weight.
For anyone.
Yep. So you and I.
Weight, overweight. Yep.
Exactly. So how much do you weigh?
70.
So so I'm twice
71.
I'm twice that. So that it's not uncommon that I'd match up against guys that are your size.
Yeah.
In that absolute. In that absolute division, I made the final on that day, and it was against Robert Whittaker.
Oh, so he made the final as well.
Yeah, of course.
Was it gi or no gi?
It was gi, that one. Richard fought him in the no gi.
And
he
awesome.
Just for the record, he demolished me.
Really?
Oh, he smashed me.
Was this a brown belt?
No, this was purple. We were both purple. Yeah.
All purple belts, and he was in the gi. So he's got legit skills even
he's
in the
very
gi.
good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Surely he doesn't train it that much now, though.
No,
I
think he still does. I'm not too sure.
Wow.
I think he still does.
He's a brown belt now, though, isn't he?
He is, yes, yeah. But what I found interesting about his style, and I actually had a bit of a chat with Dio and his coach after, he does the MMA guys don't, I was saying before, you've got to engage. So when you do jiu-jitsu and you get a guard and I get my grips, the other person usually will set up their grips and set up their pass and whatever they're going to do. So it becomes like that game of chess that you hear about so often. With Whittaker, he would disengage. So we'd get to a position where I was let's say flat on my back, and he's past my guard, and he wouldn't stay and play jiu-jitsu. He would get up and get ready to punch my face in.
Do you mean to get the points to win the fight, or
he wasn't looking at? No, so it's like when you pass someone's guard and you get to side control.
Yeah.
The next thing you look for is a mount or a submission.
Yeah.
Or, you
but you already got
forward.
points for the side control, though.
He
right?
did.
He did. Yeah.
He smashed me. At no point was I in charge of that.
So
fight.
he beat you on points.
No, he submitted me, man.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It was horrible. I wasn't ready.
How?
So basically, he took my back. He had the hooks in, and I was turtling, and being a bigger lad, I'm pretty comfortable there. And he was trying to get his hand underneath my chin for the choke, and I was just being a stubborn prick. And I knew I wasn't going to win it, but I was like, I'm going to go out,
Yeah.
I'm dying on my sword or whatever. And I remember what he did was he got his, what do you call that? The little bony bit.
Inside of your forearm, underneath your thumb.
Yeah, so that wrist.
Hard.
Wrist bone, right?
Sharp part.
And he put it underneath my nose, like right here.
Yeah.
And because he had the 2 hooks from the turtle, for those who don't know jiu-jitsu, this means nothing to you, but essentially he rolls his hips in, which makes me sort of
stretches me out.
The
and you
wrong
can't
way.
turn left or right.
No. And then because he had that bone underneath my nose, he was pulling that up as well. So it was just a painful compression on the face and the back, and it was like, it hurt my spine, it hurt my nose, it hurt my face, it hurt my cheek, it hurt my mouth. I don't wear mouth guards when I compete, which I probably should. So my inside of my mouth was just cut up, and my lips were busted. It was nasty submission. Nasty. 10 out of 10 to him. He smoked me, but I found that it was a different style to what I'm used to. So
he's a Gracie Baja, is that right?
Gracie Umaita.
Oh,
yeah, so that's the one with the yellow badge.
Yeah.
I think they're in the Sutherland Shire. I think.
Yeah. There's a few different ones around.
They're good school, man. They got some good competitors, and the head coach there, from what I've met, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah,
and Whittaker's a gentleman, mate.
He seems like the nicest person.
Going into that final, I remember they came up to me. So the way it works is if you do 7-minute rounds and then you finish your fight, you get 7-minute break before the next one. So at a minimum. So if it's a 6-minute round, you get a minimum 6 minutes. If it's 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes. Okay. So that day they gave me the 7 minutes and I was cooked, right? So like my big final was actually the semi. I fought a guy that I just lost to in my weight division in the final. So I ended up with the silver, not the gold. So beating him was more important to me than anything that day. Yeah. You know, I to be honest, didn't even know that, you know, Robert was a chance. So beating this guy was a huge thing for me. And I used everything I had to get him. And I did, you know, and it got me where I needed to be. And the officials came up and they go, "Oh, big fella, you ready to go, man?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And I looked over at Rob and I was like, "Oh, fuck, I'm going to get so pumped here." And they walked up to him and they said, "You ready to go, mate?" And he goes, "I'm okay, but let's give the big fella a few more minutes," you know. And he didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
he could have just called me in and just beat me up, which he did anyway. But to allow, and he gave me, I think it was an extra 5, 6, 7 minutes or whatever. Yeah. You know, most people don't do that. And it just showed class, in my opinion. Show class.
He would have already been in the UFC at that point, right? As a purple belt.
He'd just beaten Romero. Jacare. He'd just beaten Jacare.
Really?
Yeah.
So he was at the beginning of his tear.
Yep. He'd just beaten Jacare. Yeah. So he after that he just went on and became the champion. Yeah. It was really cool. So that's probably my biggest claim to fame in regards to my competition.
Well, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I got fingered by Rob. It was horrible. I tried though, man. I tried.
Were you surprised by anything when you roll with him, like how strong he is and stuff? Or, I don't know.
His speed.
Fast.
He's so fast. That was a big surprise. Big surprise. I wasn't anticipating. Like I knew he'd be quick, right? But I didn't think he'd be that quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something with those MMA guys. They're so explosive. Like what were you saying? You know, the first 60 seconds, how much they're sweating and how much they've been through to get that much sweat going. That the amount of explosion these guys have. I fought a guy, I can't remember his name, in a grappling industries, and he was an MMA fighter. I believe a professional, not UFC level yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up there. Interesting thing with him, again, there wasn't that engagement. There was a disengagement. So every time we sort of got into a neutral position, he would retreat. And what was happening was, you know, not staying in the ground. It would get up. And every time we'd get up, he'd I don't know how to explain it. He'd circle around me. Every time we'd come up, he'd circle. And it didn't bother me because he was just going around me and I just fixed my position and off we go. And after about 2 minutes, it told me, like, thank the gods there was no kicks allowed. Every time he'd circle, what he was doing was creating an angle and a distance for a head kick. Yeah, so I'm very thankful that there was no kicks involved. You know, this is why I love jiu-jitsu, because I don't get punched in the face.
Yeah.
But these MMA guys, they move different, they think different. You know, for me, it's about the points, the choke, the win, whatever. For those guys, it's just end this now. So it's for me, it was a big eye opener. And again, for having that, what I think is that mindset of stay on top, get on top, stay on top. These guys have the same mentality, but get on top, stay on top, head kick. Yeah. You know, see you, mate. Have a good day. So it was humbling experience, man. Very humbling, because at the time I was, you say you don't know my competitive background. I've had a lot of success. By no stretch am I amazingly good and I'm the world champion, but I've won quite a few comps. Yeah. So I had a lot of confidence going into these matches. And again, you know, when you lose by an advantage, but you go home thinking, man, he could have knocked me out 12 times in that fight. So, you know, you can look at it two ways. You can say I'm the best there is and I won the gold medal and that, or you can stop and you can learn from it and think, geez, okay, so when these guys are circling around, the head kick's coming, maybe I should look out for that. And that's my approach to it anyway.
Yeah. It's interesting that they do it still in a grappling tournament, like a grappling setting though, right? It's probably
second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just so drilled into them, you know.
They're on autopilot, I guess.
100%. And when you've got an opponent that doesn't, like an opponent in me that's not ready for it, that's not aware of it, can't move as fast.
Just to open for them,
exactly. I was a lamb to slaughter, man. It's and it's like you look at you know, Cam. We were talking about him recently. Like his jiu-jitsu is one thing in itself. Yeah, but his stand-up game is just so good. And I saw him fight probably a couple months now at one of the Wimp to Warriors. Yeah, you know, again, like on a jiu-jitsu level, with someone like Cam, you know, I might be able to keep up for a little bit, but then the second we go back to our feet, mate, it's a whole different world.
He's a tall, lanky dude. He's got good reach.
He hits hard, man.
Yeah, creates some distance, kick you in the face.
Oh yeah, what I saw at his fight was very impressive.
Yeah,
but yeah, that whole MMA jiu-jitsu thing, it's not the same thing. Not the same thing.
Love to see Cam make it to the UFC.
Absolutely.
That's really what his big goal is, and he's moved to Auckland now.
Yeah.
Training at City Kickboxing. So,
yeah. And mate, the improvement I've seen out, like I saw his stand up before he moved, and he was good. But what I saw when he came back, different person.
Yeah.
So
He's.
looking forward to seeing that.
Did you watch the last fight he had here in Sydney?
Not the last fight. It might have been
the one before,
second or the third last one. Yeah.
Did he win by? Was that the points?
Oh, he won by knock the fuck out.
Oh, did he? Okay,
he got
the last one. He got a rear naked, I think. But
hang on, did he choke him or did he not? I'm pretty sure he had him on the ground. He just beat him senseless.
Oh yeah, ground and pound.
Yeah, pretty sure he just beat him senseless. But I had a few beers, mate. Can't remember.
Yeah, I still haven't been to one of his fights. I did create kind of a profile video of him a while back and got to watch him train a bunch. But I still need to see him fight to be sick. Yeah, he's such a good dude.
Absolutely.
All right, let's change gear a little bit. When did you pick up that you wanted to shoot stills? Because you're basically the in-house photographer
at Pachecho. Yeah.
Pachecho, yeah.
I would have been. I can tell you exactly when it was, mate. I was 15. There's actually a bit of a story to this. This one's close to my heart. When I was about 15, parents were going through some rough times, and I was actually probably a bit younger, and I hated the world, mate. I was an angry little kid, and I used to to try get back at my parents. I just rebel, you know what I mean, at that age. And one of the things I used to do was steal shit. I used to just go steal shit all the time. Nothing major.
Like shoplifting, you mean?
Yeah, shoplifting. And allegedly. And I'd allegedly do all these sort of things. And in my head, it was always like, you know, if I ever get caught, I'll blame the parents. And, you know, it's a broken marriage that caused the son to do this. It's not because I was chasing the thrill or whatever. But I grew up in a little unit block in South Narrabeen next to the surf club there, and we lived in unit number 6, and in unit number 1 there was a group of kids. There was Stephen, Michael, Jason and Lisa Smith, really, really close friends of mine growing up, and great people, just great people. Their old man actually passed away of a heart attack, and at the time surfing was life. That's all I ever did. Bodyboarding, that's all I ever did.
At South Narra?
At South Narra. Loved it. Nothing better than a closeout. And I remember, I mean, I was very young, and Peter was never really that close to me, but I knew, like, you know, these guys had come a weekend, I'd knock on the door at 7 o'clock and the mum would let me in, and I'd be having breakfast with these guys. You know, Kathy was lovely. They accepted me, you know, and I love these people. So when Pete died, it broke me, it tore me. And what they did was, at the wake, they had it at the surf club, because he was heavily involved in the surf club. I think he was even president. I may be wrong. But he was heavily involved, well-respected man of the community. They did a big thing where all of these, you know, the 4 children's friends would all get together and go to the beach, and we'd have a surf and, you know, sort of remember Pete for the man that he was. And he kind of got me into surfing indirectly. Anyway, so I wanted to gift these people these photos of this day. So I thought, I need a camera. And I thought, fuck, where am I going to get a camera? I'm going to steal one. But I'm like, I can't walk into, like, you know, Ted's camera store and just pick up a Mark III, you know what I mean, and walk out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to, back then it was disposable Kodaks. And they had the underwater disposables, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to have so much fun doing this. So I went to Kmart, and I know my mate Jake out there's laughing if he's listening to this, because he was with me. And anyway, picked up this camera and I put it down my pants, and I, you know, a couple laps around the shops to not look sus, and I walked out. And then just as I stepped outside, I got this tap on my shoulder. I was like, oh, fuck. I turned around, look up, and this guy's like, where's that camera? First thing he said, where's that camera? What camera? He said, you know what camera I'm talking about? I said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like shaking at this stage. And such a little pussy. I thought I was so tough.
But you're 15.
Yeah, but I thought, you know, you think you're sick and then you're not. And yeah, when he goes, oh, where's the camera? I said, mate, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, we've got you on camera picking it up. And I said, well, I don't have it. And he said, well, where is it? I put it back on one of the shelves. He goes, come on, show me. So I walk back in, and I'm sort of retracing my steps around these aisles, and just coincidentally there was a full shelf and there was a little spot empty. And I just went, it's there. He goes, well, where is it now? I said, don't know. That's where I left it though. And he's like, it's not in your pockets. And I turned my pockets inside out. I said, no, don't know what you're talking about. And it was the whole time it's, you know, it's under it's in my undies. And he just goes, all right, get out of here, you know. So I legged it, got to the bus stop, and Jake was like, oh, is everything all right, man? What happened? Are we done? Did you get done? And I was like, shut up, I don't want to talk about it. And we didn't talk about it the whole bus ride home, and we got home, and I just went, pulled the camera out. We're like, yeah, we got it. But I never did it. I never thieved again. That was the end. I was
got
like,
an
I
out of
got
jail
away
card.
with it. Yeah, I got away with it. And I thought, nah, that's it. I'm changing. I'm turning leaves. Ended up taking photos on the day, and it was so shit. Like, it was so shit. There was just no waves, but there was a little shore break, and it would have been maybe a foot. Like, you get a head barrel. And I remember laying on my belly on the sand and looking down the beach and just waiting for the waves to come over, and I was trying to catch the moment. And I only had 20 clicks, you know, so I think out of those 20, there was one that half worked. And I was like, wow, look at that. Because back then, again, having that Serbian upbringing, no one I knew, no one in my family surfed or swam. Like, my dad would shit himself in the ocean. Mum was like, I'm not getting in the water. Because, you know, landlocked country, they're not very good at swimming. And all my friends at the time, you know, wearing Adidas and being a wog and driving cars and Rexies was cooler than surfing, you know. So I was kind of outcast, and being able to, it was a way for me to show people what they were missing out on. As you know, surfing, pulling into the barrel, there's not everyone experiences that. It's just one of the most amazing things in this world. So I found a way that I could share that with people. I thought, wow, I can show my mum, my sister, my auntie, my grandma, my grandpa, my dad. I can show everybody what I do and why I love this, and maybe they'll understand me a bit better. So I started taking these photos, and buying these disposables was my thing. Yeah. And then within a couple of months, couple of years, I went to, at high school, I was friends with a guy called Tim Walker, good bloke. We used to, man, we bodied, like, all we did was surf. That was our life, you know. Like, he lived a couple of streets down at Coleroy. I lived at Southie, and we'd meet somewhere in the middle, and we'd go to Northie, we'd go to Longreef, we'd get on our pushies, you know, before we had our licenses. And I don't know, have you heard of realsurf.com?
No.
Okay, so Real Surf was, like, in my opinion, the original Northern Beaches online surf report. So if you wanted to know the swell charts, you went there, you know, with the virtual boys and that. If you wanted to see a cam of Narrabeen, you went to Real Surf, you know. So that was, in my opinion, the original. And back then they had like a forum you logged into, and you remember, and you uploaded photos and that, and they had a competition. And I had a photo of my mate Tim, and I've still got it somewhere. It's just the best photo. It's like maybe 3 foot closeout. It's nothing special. Tim's at the top of the wave, not even bottom turning. Like, it's a shit moment. You know?
At South Narra?
At South Narra, yeah. But it was a really stormy day, so the clouds are really dark and sort of grey. The wave itself matched the colour of the sky. But then, because it was such a nice offshore day, the lips just crisp and white, and just the colours were just perfect. And Tim had a grey board, Dave Ballard. He had a grey board with a white slick, and it just matched, everything matched. And then his weddy had like a grey weddy with a dash of red, and it just looked great. Yeah, you know. And talking about colour and black and white, like we were earlier, in this instance, colour photography was the way to go. And anyway, I took the shot and just was like, you know, you actually have the 6x4 and your 5x7 or whatever in your hand, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. Competition online, scanned in the photo.
Wait, did you shoot this on a disposable camera?
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. I think actually Tim entered the competition without asking me, to be honest, but he scanned it in, he entered the comp, and I won, man. I won bodyboarding VHS. That's how old school this was. This is
you want a VHS
like
video
an
of
actual
bodyboarding
videotape. Yeah,
sick price.
Yeah. So back then it was monumental. You know, that young of an age, I was like, people think my photos are cool. Okay, I think they're cool. I'm going to keep doing this. And then from there, and mind you, I only ever really shot film besides the disposables at high school. I never really had a camera. And then out of nowhere, my dad got me a Kodak digital 1.2 megapixel camera. What a weapon. What a weapon. Yeah. So from that's where it really started. Yeah. Was that Kodak. And it was just, I mean, heap of shit. I wouldn't give you $10 for it now. Yeah. You know? Like, it was just crap. But back then it was digital. Yeah. And at the same
freedom
time,
though with the digital in the beginning.
For me it was. And coincidentally, at the time because about that time my mum had passed as well. So a close family friend of mine, Damir Chucha, he came over and he started getting me into computer programming. I don't even know how that came about. He was a programmer and he was fascinated with programming. So I think he was trying to give me something, for my future, and, he was looking after me. So got into programming, but at the same time was like, oh, have you heard of Photoshop? I said, no, what's Photoshop? He said, oh, it's Photoshop version 4. That's how old school this was. He installed it. This was back when you had 0-day wears and you had to download it with the keygen and all that sort of stuff. So got that allegedly, and then got that installed and just started. I was like, I remember that photo of Tim that I was telling you about that won the comp. I remember I cut him out and I learned how to paste it onto a new layer. And I got a picture of someone surfing at Jaws, and I superimposed Tim on this wave of Jaws and was hooked. And that was it for me. That was it.
Yeah, it's magic, right?
It really is.
Basically,
I'm a shit photographer. Without Photoshop, I'm rubbish. Without Photoshop, my photos are no good, man.
I think that's most of us. I should say a secret skill that really good photographers have that we don't think about that often is that they're great at Photoshop.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So my mentor, Paul, he actually, not that I've ever really called him that to his face, but he's definitely a mentor of mine. Paul, he said to me, he's like, man, you're at the point now, this was years ago, you're at the point now where Photoshop, you're good enough with it that it's a tool. So he's like, don't
you got a skill.
Yeah, 100%. But he's like, don't go home, open your Photoshop and think, what can I do? He's like, when you take the photo, look at it and in your head say, what can I do? So, what we were talking about, the monogym and the straight lines and all that sort of stuff, a lot of that doesn't faze me in the moment right then and there because I know I can fix that post. Yeah. But knowing that I can fix that post is what gives me, I suppose, the freedom to do what I do in camera. And the more that time goes on, the less I do in Photoshop. I find
you get more and more confident with it, even though you might not realize.
With Photoshop or just with
shooting in the whole process in general. Well, because a lot of people would shoot, right? And then they look at it and then they're like, this is a crap photo. But there might not be. There might be small tweaks there that's fairly easy for someone like you, and that'll make it a great photo. Yep. Not always, but they can be times.
It's a tool. It's 100% a tool. Yeah. But I find that the more that time goes on, the better I get at this craft, the less that I seem to be stuck in Photoshop doing things. It's more, Photoshop's more just for contrast, saturation and straightening, more or less, you know what I mean?
Well, you also know that you don't want to spend hours in Photoshop to correct something 100%. That you could have done properly 100%. From the beginning. That's the worst. 100%. Then that's when it's not good.
I learned that in studio. I remember I got home and there was just that one hair. Just one hair across,
and in the worst spot where it's hard to get rid of it.
Yeah, every shot just takes 40 minutes to edit. Or if I just done that, 6 seconds in studio saved me 2 hours at home. So, but like everything, you learn the hard way, right?
Yeah, and when you learn the hard way, you never forget.
Never
ever forget. That goes with a lot of things. So, which cameras are you shooting with now?
At the moment, I've been stuck on my Canon 5D Mark III for quite a few years.
It's a classic.
She's a good horse, mate. She'll run all day. I don't know how many frames I'll click with that thing. I bought a brand new, first time I went to Japan, which was 2014, I think.
5 years.
Yeah.
You've probably done between 25 and 50,000 shots on that.
I would have taken a lot. Yeah.
You can get a software to have a look at it.
Can you?
Yeah, because when you sell it, usually people, when you are going to sell you a 5D Mark III, which is probably going to happen at some point, most people will ask for the shutter count.
Oh, wow.
You just download a software.
And I take a lot of photos of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, a lot. You'd probably be 50,000 shots.
It wouldn't surprise me.
But it still works so well, that camera.
The camera's flawless. It's nothing. The only thing that's maybe wrong with it is I find that the little wheel on top's a little bit loose, but it's just... Yeah, it's just such a good camera.
You can probably get that service too if you wanted to. Yeah,
I'm at the point now where I'll probably get a new camera eventually. But I've been shooting Canon, and it was one of those things when I first bought the camera, it was like, okay, am I doing Canon? Am I doing Nikon, whatever you want to call it? I just wasn't sure which one I wanted to go. Ended up going Canon. Very happy I did. But at the same time, I had friends that were all on the Nikon system, and their shots, I swear they were sharper than mine, man. It's like it's not me. It's got to be the camera. Eventually, I learned it was just me.
Was that before you learned the back button focus?
Yes. That was a godsend. And thanks to Tim Walker for showing me that, because I remember he goes, "Oh, you got to do this. It's what all the pros do." I'm like, fuck, what do they know, mate?
Yeah.
And I remember that first time a back button focus. Changed everything.
I think, that's a good shout out. I think David Ross was the one that showed that to me. And that is a huge difference.
Did it make a difference for you?
Massive difference. It's like, what were you doing before that?
Yep, 100%, yeah. So even now, I've tried the back button on the Fuji. Doesn't work the same.
Ah, okay.
In my opinion.
So you have a Fuji as well. Which one?
XT2.
And what's the XD2?
T.
XT2, yeah.
XT2, yes.
Yeah. The Fuji, I've never tried, but they've got such a strong following.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Why do you love it?
So the reason I chose the XT2, I was going to go, okay, so I'll tell you how this all started. Have you ever seen the documentary Looking for Finding Vivian Maya?
No.
Fascinating documentary. Well, it was for me anyway. In essence, a guy found a bunch of photos that were amazing and he wanted to know who it was, and the documentary goes on to find who the photographer is. She's dead. They found out, but the work that she produces is just, it's amazing. And all it is candid portraiture on the streets. And she was a nanny, so she used to basically, she'd look after children, and then and they interview the kids. So they were like, was she your nanny? Yes, she was. And they sort of say, oh God, I remember with her, all we ever did was walk. So she would take them on like 8 to 12 hour adventures during the day. And all it was her walking around. And I think it's a Rollex, whatever it is. You know, the one with the twin
twin lenses.
Twin lenses.
Yeah.
She used to carry it around her chest. So she'd walk up to someone, say, let's say right now, me and you. So your eyes are looking at me, but my camera at my chest is actually looking up at you.
Yeah.
Very interesting perspective. And I just found it fascinating. Also, it's kind of less confrontational. You could take someone's portrait from the chest where you'd have a degree of control. You're not shooting from the hip, so to speak, but from that level, you could still control the camera quite well.
And the viewfinder was at the top, right? So you could see, look down and frame.
So that's why I went the XT2. So the XT2's got a fold-out frame at the fold-out screen at the back. So when I sit the XT2 at my chest and I fold out that little screen, I'm actually looking down like it's a Hasselblad or like it's a So I'm not shooting from the hip.
So you use the live screen as a viewfinder and not the actual viewfinder on the XT2?
When I'm doing my street photography, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I get it. So wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I did think that you'd... Okay, is it a mirrorless?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's real quiet.
Mate, you can turn it off. That's the like it sounds creepy, right? Like you're turning off all sound and you're sneaking up on people and taking photos. But I mean, for those who know street photography, the genre in itself is that essentially. And I was saying to you earlier, I love just that random moment,
candid moment.
It's not like you can really see the emotion in people's eyes, you know, and it's just a split second. You're walking down the street and you think, oh, something's going on over there. You walk over, you suss it out, you take your portrait, and it could be someone looking through their bag for a phone. It could be someone looking through their bag for their wallet. It could be someone on the phone. Like I've had a situation where a lady got off the phone and I was just sort of standing there talking to a friend and I didn't hear the conversation, but she was just devastated. So something had happened that wasn't good, you know, and it's not necessarily nice to take my photo, but man, I saw my shot, so I took the shot, and it's a beautiful portrait of this woman, but she's got a lot of grief and a lot of stress in her face, you know, and that's not the sort of thing that you can get if you walk up and say, oh, hey, I just noticed you got a pretty bad phone call there. Do you mind if I take a quick photo?
It's human nature, right? It's what happens to people.
It's who we
telling
are.
a story with who we are. Yeah,
like it's if you look at my I suppose my intention with my shots. If you look at my shots, it's every single shot. I like to look. I don't know these people. I don't know where they're from, what they're doing, where they're going, but for a split second in time, you can look at them in their eyes and you can say, oh shit, they're feeling this or they're feeling that. And my interpretation will be different to your interpretation. So I'm kind of provoking thought, and I like that.
You get people to create a story in their own head.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's what art is to me. You know, same with music. Like I love music, but the way you interpret a song won't be the same way as I interpret it. May not be the way it was intended. It doesn't matter. That's art. That's what it's for.
That's a good way to put it.
Produces thought, man.
Yeah. Street photography has also a very important part in telling history later on, right? So when you shoot it, it might not be that significant, but I think all of us have experienced looking at photos from, let's say, the end of the Second World War, and you see all the street photography from Europe and stuff. It's amazing. And there's stuff there that I'm sure at the time when you saw the photo would be like, well, it's just a street or a car or whatever. But now when you look back 60 years later, 70 years later, all those details are incredible.
Well, I love seeing, actually just for Christmas, my auntie got me a book. I can't tell you the name of it, unfortunately, but it's a skate book, and it's about, it's the same era as the Dogtown Sea Boys and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's the nostalgia and all those old skateboards, and they're thrashing in pools, and it's just, you don't see that anymore. Not to the degree, okay, maybe you do see it, but it's not as new as what it was. So when you see these, these guys that were pioneering this skateboarding, to me, it's fascinating. And then you turn the page, and then you see the car to be like, if it was in Australia, there's a really nice photo of someone walking down the street. Who cares? But man, look at that Kingswood in the back. Remember those? Like,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to sort of. Yeah. It's just that thought, like you see the picture of the Kingswood. The person in it doesn't matter. The skateboard doesn't matter. The scenery doesn't matter. But that Kingswood, my grandfather used to have a Kingswood. So every time I see one, it reminds me of my pop. And that's a nice thing for me. So I try to feelings, man.
It's a perfect example of how people take different stuff from it, right?
100%.
Like someone else might watch that photo and be like, "Oh man, I had that skateboard when I was a kid."
Right?
Yeah, like, that's sick. I can't even. I was trying to remember my first skateboard, but like if I did see one of my first skateboards in a photo now, it'd be like probably a Tony Hawk model or something.
Yeah, right.
Did
you start when they were single kicks and all that?
Yeah. Way back.
Yeah.
And I do remember one. I don't think it was my first one, but it had the bird skull at the back, and that was a Tony Hawk kind of symbol in the beginning.
Bones Brigade?
Maybe.
Yeah, like Tommy Guerrero and all those guys, man.
Yeah.
That's old school.
And it's like, if I'd seen that now, it definitely, recreate some memories in my head. Even just thinking about now, like thinking about rolling down the street.
Do you still skate?
No, I have a skateboard, but definitely I wouldn't call myself a skater. I'll follow a lot of it still. And surprisingly now, I think the Aussies and Brazilians have some of my favorites.
What's that?
Shane O'Neill.
No, what's that Brazilian fella?
Luan Matrice.
Short. He's a real short fella. I can't remember his name.
He's like current now.
He's so sick, man.
Yeah, there's a few from South America that are just crazy.
So sick.
Yeah.
It's favorite of all time.
See, I was a big Donny Barley fan back in the day. Yeah, I love the way his style. Not necessarily. That's funny, right? When you look back at it, I don't really remember the tricks per se as much, but the style was sick. But then on the other end of it, I loved Jamie Thomas. Man, he didn't really have a good style.
No, he
Still,
was just a hell man.
But he was a complete lunatic, which is kind of how I tried to skate. I wasn't really a lunatic, but I wasn't very technical. But now I'm way different. Like I love Shane O'Neill. The stuff he does, like the board control he has, is out of this world. I'd never be able to do something like that. But when I skated, I just try to like all the big.
Oh man, I'd be stoked if I ever did a kickflip. Like I skated, I skated every day for like 8 years, and I'd be like, yes, I did an ollie today. I was so shit, but I loved it, man. There's skating's not something else. But you know who mesmerizes me every time I watch him skate? Day One Song.
Oh, he's incredible.
And every time he does something, it just blows my mind.
And he's still, do you follow him? His Instagram is insane.
Yeah.
And they just released, or not just, but maybe a year ago now, but they had a full documentary on him on YouTube.
I haven't seen that.
By Transworld. I think it's maybe 45 minutes long.
Check that out.
It's really good. Like well done and well produced. And he's, like his tricks is just so creative.
It's next level, man.
Yeah.
Actually, I've never shot skating. I think I've had 2 goes at it in my entire life. So if you know anyone that skates and wants some shots, let me know. I'd love to try it.
I'm sure there's a bunch here, but yeah, that's funny. That's how I started
skateboarding.
Yeah, well, right. I got injured doing my big ollies, and then I did my ankle. One of the probably 20 times I did my ankle.
Like broke it?
No, not really. Just I think I broke it once, but I rolled it badly and it swelled up, and I couldn't skate for weeks. And then I picked up a camera, borrowed a camera from a mate, a Canon EOS 5 film camera.
Oh, wow.
And I borrowed it from a mate, and then I ended up just buying it in the end. And that's how I started shooting. I had no idea what I was doing.
No one does. No idea. Star, man.
Yeah. Still don't know what I'm doing.
Tell me about it.
You do, I did want to ask you about a process that you do currently, and you do, I think you've done it for a couple of years. You kind of, I might get this wrong, you make an end of year book for
Pachecho?
Pachecho, yeah.
So I actually only did that last year for the first time ever.
Oh, I thought I'd seen more.
Yeah, so I ended up doing it. So what I did last year, was it 2018? I've been injured for a while. So end of 2018, had a accident at training and blew my knee out. So I've been out. Excuse me. I haven't been training properly for about 12 months, as you know, in and out. Every time I start training, 3 weeks later, something pops. At the time, I couldn't even walk. My knee was just so busted up. And I thought, oh, you know what? We're all going to Pan Pacs in Melbourne, which is a big trip the Pachecho guys do every year.
One of the biggest tournaments in Australia?
It is. I think it is the biggest, especially in the IBJJF, in the gi. Yep, definitely. It's, in my opinion, the best jiu-jitsu. Out of all the competitions I've done, and I've competed in Japan as well, I truly think that the Pan Pacs is the highest level.
In Australia?
In Australia, definitely.
Sorry to sidetrack, but quick question.
Yep.
What would you consider the second best
competition?
Yeah, in gi.
In gi?
In Australia.
That I've done.
Or just a level right now.
I found the Australian Championships were difficult. That was a really good level. But to be honest, mate, I think Melbourne. I just think if you go to Melbourne, man, the competitions and the level of jiu-jitsu in Melbourne is different. Those guys are really good down there.
Is it bigger down there, do you reckon?
I think so, yes. I think so.
It's again, the weather is so crap that they just want to being indoors on the mats all day.
Stay warm and hug the bloke next to you.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. When I started down there, what I did find was a big difference was their time schedule. They just classes all day.
Yeah.
Like 3 in the morning, 3 in the middle of the day, 3 in the evening, and then they had classes when they weren't training, when it was just open mat every other time.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
In Sydney, I find and I mean, even in overseas, it just seems to be jiu-jitsu. It's just done late at night. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that'd take me out of it. Even 7 p.m. is too late for me.
It's hard. It's hard, mate. Like I had to rearrange my whole life.
Yeah.
To suit
I'm so glad. That is, so 2 reasons why I kind of moved over to you guys was morning classes and early afternoon classes, which is way better for me.
Tradies class.
And then, the tradies class. Tradie and the lady. Jess, probably.
The lady.
and then that it was more focused on sport and not self-defense.
Yeah, right.
I'm not out past 7 p.m, so chances of me ending up in a fight is very slim. Knock on wood. I don't want another one either. But sorry, sidetracking there a little bit.
I forgot what we were talking about. The magazine.
Yes.
Mate, so when I did injure myself, I was already booked in, my flight and everything, accommodation was paid for the Pan Pacs trip, but I had to pull out of the competition due to injury. And Dio and I were talking, and he said, "Oh, can you bring your camera down?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I'll bring the camera down." But he was like, "Can you take photos?" I was like,
well, he kind of almost gave you a specific brief, like shoot for the gym.
Not so, like he was just asking me as a mate, not like do what I say by no stretch. But it was the first time he's ever sort of said, "Can you document the trip?" I was like, "Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea." So the reason I love this sort of work, many years ago, my uncle Tony took me to the MotoGP, and at the time I was just, I had no money and everything, and he paid for everything for me. It was just a great weekend. And I remember I was speaking to my auntie. I said, "Fuck, I can't believe he's doing this for me," because we had VIP tickets, mate. He took me out the back. I got to meet the riders. It was, it was a really amazing trip.
Yeah.
And I remember and I said to my auntie, I was like, "How do I pay him back? Like, even if I pulled out $1,000 to give him cash, he's not the kind of guy to take it." I said, "So what can I do?" She was, "Why don't you take photos and make a book for him?" Man, that's a great idea. So awesome, I fell in love with that. And that was I'd only ever done it that one time, but I loved it. And my book was pretty well received by the people on the trip with us, because these guys go every year. They have a massive bus that they bought. They gut it out, and it's filled with kegs and beds. And it's just the perfect road trip bus, you know what I mean? So everyone that was on the bus, we got a copy for, and they loved it. So the book was well received. So when Dio said this, I thought, oh man, you know what? I haven't done that for a few years. That'd actually be really fun. And now that I'm not really training at all, I've got plenty of time at home where I can sit in front of my Mac and I can make this all happen. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it. So the intention was to take the photos for the 3 days at the competition and come up with like a sort of book that was just for the competitors of that specific competition. Ended up becoming, you know what? I've got some really cool photos from this year. I'm just going to take these photos, and because my photos back when I started were okay, but then progressively got really to where they are now.
Surprised, because you were shooting a ton. What happens when you shoot a lot?
Right,
you get better.
A lot. And as you know, it's not just taking the photo, like getting the frame per se. It's like with the fluoro lights, man, that is tricky. You know, with that, like every shot's either yellow, purple, blue, or fucking orange.
Every photographer's worst nightmare.
Oh man, the white balance is so hard to in there. Like Dio, if you're listening to this, man, get some LEDs, bro, please. Make my life easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, made the 2018 book, you know, and I called it the 2018 book because I specifically only used photos from 2018, and I got the magazine out. It was like 240 pages, frothed on it. Like I loved it. I was so proud. I could see my work in print, not just on Instagram.
Yeah.
It just
different when it's print, right?
It's so different. It's so fulfilling.
It's more forever.
Oh, it's so fulfilling, man. Yeah. I just loved it. And at the time I was seeing this girl, and she said, "Oh, that's a really amazing thing that you've done for everyone." I was like, "Oh, fuck everyone, it's for me. Like that's my work, you know."
Yeah.
And then she said, "Why don't you do one for every other year?" And I sort of went, "Man, I've got like 6, 7, 8 years worth of photography that I've been doing, and I've done nothing with it except Instagram. I'm going to do it." So I just, where that book, I sort of, you know, I gave title pages and I gave sections. So like I'd started off with Dio, and then there'd be a few photos of him, and I had some sequences, and I tried to copy an old skate mag or a surf mag.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I did all that, and then I thought, man, I can't do that for every single year. There's a lot of people I don't have photos of. So to create these title pages, like for example, if I said, you know, Kim, and then there was 8 pages of you, I might not have 8 pages of Felipe.
Yeah, so it becomes,
people get upset. So I thought, you know what, stuff, and from now on, I'm just going to, it's my work. I'm going to portray my work. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Not my problem. And I ended up with 2013 to 2018. And
so you went back.
Dude, it took me a long time.
That would be so much work.
It was a lot of work. It was, people don't realize, you know, you got to understand, Kim, it's like, it wasn't just going back through my old photos and putting them onto program and creating a book. I had to re-edit these things because my editing is better than what it was. I understand things different. The look and the feel of my photos is different to what it was, and I wanted uniformity. So I went back to day one, man, and I went through every single photo. It took me a very long time, but I was injured. I had nowhere to be. I had nothing to do, you know, so I just stayed home and did it.
That's super impressive, because the hardest part for me is to go back at old work and redo it, just like you said. That's amazing. Because I prefer to edit straight away, because then my motivation and my feel and my energy is in that shoot. If a week has passed, I'm like, I got to go back.
See, I'm the opposite, man. I read a quote where it was an old guy, I can't remember his name, but he's one of the Magnum photographers, and he would, on principle, not develop his film for 2 years, because when you look at the photo 2 years later, you're not remembering the emotion. You're not remembering the moment. You're basically looking at, is it a good photo or isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can't remember what you shot. You don't remember who that person is or what happened at the time. Quite often with my street photography, like you're going down the street, and, you know, I'll often go with friends. I don't just always go by myself because it gets a bit boring. So you go out with a mate, you walk for a few hours, take your shots, sit down, have a pint, keep going, sort of thing. You know, something good will happen between you two in conversation, and you'll smile and you get a shot, and you're associating that good feeling with the photo. Photo shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you're like, nah, but that is a good moment. That was a good moment. But it doesn't matter because the photo shit. Whereas if I leave time between my editing, I find that I can separate myself from what felt good and what is good. And I'm all about trying to improve, man. Like as you know, as an artist, you've got to self-evaluate, you've got to self-criticize, you've got to keep reinventing yourself, and it's very, very difficult. And especially myself, I'm an emotional creature, so attaching emotion to these photographs is for me is not a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's one of the biggest lessons that I still remember from studying photography at university, and they called it killing your babies.
Yeah, right.
Because sometimes the best example I had is at the end of the year, for the last year at uni, you have 1 year to create an exhibition, and it can be as many or as few photos as you want, but ultimately you're limited by space, by your budget, etc. So I ended up with 8 photos, I think, but I probably had 12, maybe 10 that I really wanted to put up. So you're like, you have to cut some.
It's so hard, man.
And then my lecturer, he explained it to me in the way that you got to look at the work as a work, not individual pieces of photography. It's not 8 single images. It's going to be a series of 8. So you got to take out the ones that doesn't work in that story of the 8, and that might be the best single photo that you take out, and that's that's killing
hard.
your baby.
It's so hard, man.
So hard.
I just watched a thing with I never pronounce his name correctly. Joel Meyerowitz, the Magnum photographer. Okay. So he did. Have you ever heard of Masterclass? Yep. So he did a masterclass.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Got my hands on that. Fantastic. I watched the Andy Leibovitz one. Didn't really enjoy that, to be honest. I didn't take much out of that. But this one, he's a genius. I love the way he explains things, like his workflow. But he said in the process of his workflow, he's like, the most dangerous thing a photographer can do is fall in love with their own work. I'm guilty as charged, man. Like every photo I take, I love. I just, everything I do, I love. And I need to be so much stricter with what I send out into the world, but it's so hard.
So what's the selection process for the books, end of year books? Was that difficult
Pachecho?
for you? Yeah. How did you limit that?
So at the start, like 2013 to 2015, there just wasn't that many photos, so it wasn't hard.
So you try to fill it, basically.
Yeah. No, I wasn't. Yes and no.
Wow,
It was easier. It was harder to fill.
Yeah.
As the years went on, there was a lot more. And it's interesting. You look at it. You go, oh, how did I get so many shots in that year? Oh, that's right. That's when that competition, my elbow got dislocated, relocated in one comp. It's like 6 months recovery time.
So you were injured.
So I was injured. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
you train for a week, and then you tweak your arm. You're like, oh shit, I'm out for a week. So for a week, and as you know, even though I'm not training full time, I'm at the gym pretty regularly.
Yeah, every week.
Oh man, friends and family. That's my life. So. At the time, it was like, oh, I must have been injured. So you get more and more and more and more. Now, this year's going to be interesting. So as you know,
you're going to have a ton.
Oh, man, I've got so many. So this year, I'm going to do a book about gi, and I'm going to do a book on no gi, because that's how many photos I got.
Oh, wow. Sick.
Because I got that many. And also, I found this year, funnily enough, Fridays was the day that I'd be there taking photos, because as you know, we all go out for beers after no gi on Fridays. So Zock was always there on Fridays taking shots, man, straight to the beers afterwards.
Yeah. And you had gi and no gi classes.
That's right.
Fridays.
Oh, no.
You don't
I
make
work till 5, man. So
that's right.
snookered there, unfortunately. I love that tradies class, but can't get there. Yeah. So I've got that many gi, that many more no gi than gi.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sick.
Yeah. It's going to be good, man.
Injuries, it's always not always, but injuries is often a big proponent of being creative, because you're like an athlete and then you can't train or compete or whatever that you do.
Yeah, man.
So you pick up the camera.
I'm lucky that I got that, dude. A lot of like, for me, the last 12 months has been very, very tricky. For those who know me, know how much I love jiu-jitsu. I just gave everything over to it, and I will continue to do so as soon as I'm able to get back on the mats full time. But not having the ability to go and train, there's massive like therapeutical release that's just disappeared for me. I don't get that outlet that other people do. I've never been, until recently, I've never done weights or anything like that, so that was never an option for me. So it wasn't just, oh shit, I'm not training anymore, I'll go get creative. It was actually a huge identity thing. It was like, far out, man, who am I? If I'm not doing jiu-jitsu, then who am I? And that was something I struggled with 12 months ago. Very lucky to be able to pick up a camera and do what I do. There's a lot of people there's people out in this world that are lucky to have just jiu-jitsu, just CrossFit, just surfing, just skating. But for me to have both jiu-jitsu and photography, I'm very, very lucky, man.
You shouldn't just rely on one thing around your identity. No. I think that's
I learned that
very unhealthy. And
100%.
And when something happens, you get left out in the cold.
Yep.
And having something else. And another thing is, what it does is, I always talk about something called a triple threat, and it's having 3 different skills that are quite separate from each other. So for you understand jiu-jitsu, you know what looks good and what doesn't look good, what makes sense and doesn't make sense in a photo, and you can shoot. So you have 2, right? That's 2 major skills that's kind of separate, but you combine them together. That gives you something that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, 100%.
Puts you in a very, very small bracket. You can get a great photographer come in and shoot, but a lot of their shots, you would look at it and be like, well, that doesn't make sense. We don't know what's going on, or, like they just don't understand the sport.
100%.
So having at least like 3 different skills like that, it's going to give you so much more fulfillment, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You look at my surfing shots, like I never was a good surfer. bodyboard or nothing. I was never good at any of it, but I understood it.
You understood the ocean.
Yeah, 100%. So, I've got some really cool shots out in the surf. I'm never in the water because I've never had underwater housing. But, with my 400 mil from the shore, I get some great shots. And again, it's just that knowledge. It's knowing when the guy's going to, knowing what the wave's going to do and predicting what the guy's going to do on that wave. So if it's a bodyboarder and you can see that the end section's bowling, he's going to hit it, he's going to get air, just be patient, wait until he gets to that section. He might completely fuck it and nothing happens, but knowing that is one thing. Same with when I photograph boxing. I've got a magazine of my boxing shots if you ever want to show. I'll show you that. It's really cool. But that was back when I was boxing. A lot of my friends were competing at the time, and even just having that little bit of knowledge that I did, I was able to you're able to predict when the action's going to happen. So while you're sitting on the sidelines and at the ring and you're looking up and you're just watching and waiting, and you can hear the photographer next to you just mashing the button, just getting shot, and you're just like, nah, man, nothing's happened yet. This is first round, just chill. You don't know when. Give it 30 seconds, Then sometimes you'd see two big dudes come out, and you're like, oh, this won't last longer than 40 seconds. Get as many shots in as I can. But again, that knowledge is what makes the shots. I think what makes my shots as good as what they are.
100%.
Yeah, man. A lot of gratitude for that.
Yeah,
very happy.
That's awesome. Hey, tell me a bit about something that did change for you in 2018 with your injury is that you decided to go and get a PT session with Alessio, who's a previous guest on this show. How was that experience for you, and what have you learned so far from the big man?
How was that experience, man? It's very humbling. Very, very humbling. I like I said earlier, 7-minute rounds, right? That's a lot of work. Yeah. And I can do that comfortably, but I can't do 45 seconds on that ski machine without crying. That thing is horrible, man.
Yeah.
So
scared.
I was forced into it.
How were you forced into it?
The injury.
Yeah. So you forced yourself into it. Or did you just?
Yeah, look, it's all a choice, right? I can choose to sit back and just do nothing, but I've learnt differently through jiu-jitsu, and same with photography. If you want to get better, you got to get out and take photos. You want to get better at jiu-jitsu, you got to go and train. You want to get healthy and fix your injuries, you can't sit at home on the couch. But it's one of those.
Take the first step yourself.
Yeah, you have to, 100%.
But it's not as easy.
But how tricky is it? Because you're injured, so you can't work, but you can't get better without doing the work. So you just really need to push through. And I'm lucky that.
And the injury shouldn't hold you back, though. I think that's such a common misconception. You're saying is oh, I'm injured. I can't go into the gym. I can't get a PT. Well,
you can.
You absolutely can.
100%. I learned the hard way that prone hamstring curls right now are not good for me. If I load them up too much, I've got a slippery knee. It slips out of place and it fucking hurts, man. I can't walk properly for anywhere between 5 minutes to 5 days, depending on when it slides back into place. But there's other ways to attack the hamstrings. Do you know what I mean? So as much as, yes, I can't exercise my hamstring in that machine or in that sense, Alessio finds another way for me to do it.
And there's a ton of other things
so many, man, and what, they're worse. They work better, and it's just interesting. When I said humbling before, I fancied myself as, as a strong guy. I'm a big guy, man. I'm bigger than your average bear. I'm graced with Serbian shoulders and a Serbian back, man. I can lift fridges, you know what I mean? I'm a strong guy.
Yeah.
But then you go to somewhere like Chocolate Box, and I've told you this, there's women that are 60 kilograms moving more weight than me. You're like, what the fuck? How does that happen? And then, you get on the roller and you think you're big and strong and you pull this thing in and you do it all fine, and then that bloke next to you is half your size. He's just powering through this thing. Yeah. So you all of a sudden, I'm a white belt again. I'm back to base level. Yeah. But it has been nothing but fun.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because I know Alessio is going to make it harder for me. But honestly, it's like I've said to you, starting off on the rower, I think when I was doing my first EMOM, I think 8 calories in a minute was what my target was. And then 2 weeks ago, I hit 15 calories in that minute. And that for me just felt great. Not that I can do it consistently. Like today, I was struggling. But, that in that sense, it was very, very rewarding. But learning simple things like the first time he was getting me to do the rear elevated split squat.
Yeah. Split squat's basically with your rear foot elevated.
Yes. Yeah. So, foot up on the bench.
Single leg exercise.
Yes. Horrible experience. That was just so hard. But, what I learned there was that, and this is really interesting for me, as a fighter, you're always sort of told, be on your toes, be on your toes, be on your toes, be on your toes, be ready, when I start doing these lunges and things like that, I'm still on my toes.
On your front foot as well?
Yeah, man.
Oh, wow. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that, right? So that's what he said to me. He was just like, what are you doing, mate? Get off your toes, put your heel down, drive off your heel. And you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, again, learning curve, little things that I've been doing wrong for I don't know how long. So, not that it made it any easier, mind you. The lunges are still hard. The squats or whatever, they're still difficult. But just learning things about my body in that respect that I never knew before has been fascinating. And I suppose actually putting some mass on. Like, I've gotten bigger since I've started with Alessio. That's not been long, and I'm not trying to get bigger. We're trying to lose weight and fix my muscles for this operation that's going to be happening this year, hopefully. But it's just, like that's rewarding. Do you know what I mean? So, like I was saying earlier, getting up at 5:30 is not something I'm very comfortable with, but achieving this goal of a morning before I even go to work it's so fulfilling, man. It's great. Yeah, it's changed my life. So thank you, Alessio.
Yeah, he's. You ended up with a really good trainer, which I'm.
He's great.
I'm stoked on.
He's got that app that he uses, that True Coach. Having a plan. Like I walk into the gym and I've done some PT sessions with Alessio, and he's like, I remember the first time I did the Romanian deadlift, I hurt my back. I didn't know really what I was doing, and then I did a session with him. We spent like 40 minutes on it, and now I'm very confident with it, and I'm seeing results. Getting better and better. But having that plan, I know people. Myself guilty. You go to the gym, I'm going to join the gym, I'm going to start doing this, da-da-da. You go in there and you look and I might do that today, and then I'll try some of those, and you set yourself these targets and you achieve them, right? And you feel good, but really you're not getting many results. But with him, it's written out for me every single day. I see exactly what I need to do. I know exactly what reps, what weights, what everything, and he monitors it for me, and I comment on it. So there's good communication. Every week it changes for me. So, excuse me, even though I've been doing, let's say, the standing split squat for, 3 weeks, let's say. I've noticed every week that either the reps go up or the weight goes up. And if the reps go down, then the weight goes up. And it's some days is more than some other days is less. And like today with that aerobic thing, you were saying how that slow and steady wins the race thing. Like I don't know any of this stuff, man. It's not something that I'm good at or could ever have worked out on my own. So again, grateful that I made the choice to go and do it, and 2, that I found the right guy, man. Yeah.
It's a big difference going in, having a plan and a structure that someone else gives you than just to go in there and thinking that you're going to have that plan yourself.
But again, I mean, a bit of humility on my part. What the fuck do I know about CrossFit and weights? And I know nothing, man. So for me to walk in with a plan on my own, I think is a bit arrogant. So having someone,
you'd be surprised how many people do that.
I know. No, mate. Like I said, I'm guilty of it. Yeah. And I thought, I'm gonna do this, and this year, and I'm gonna come out winning, and it just, I don't know what I'm talking about, man. It'd be like Alessio trying to learn jiu-jitsu on his own. He won't do it
with a dummy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, mate. He needs someone with a bit of experience. So
that's a good way to put it.
It's like the curriculum that I'd sort of implemented into my teaching in that fundamental class. It's a full structure. It's an idea. It's like the end result is going to be this. To get to that end result, we need to do this. It's a full plan. Victory loves preparation. My favorite quote. I love that quote. So again, without that preparation through Alessio, I wouldn't be able to be victorious. And I know that by the time this operation comes around for my knee, I'm going to be stronger than I've ever been going into it. And then once I come out of it, coming back into jiu-jitsu, providing I do everything I say I'm going to do, man, I'm going to be a different competitor. Yeah. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome. It's great that you're building muscle and strength before you go into the surgery. I think a lot of people think that, I'm going to wait till this happens, till that happens.
So again, I got lucky in a couple of senses. One, I found the right guy that's got me through, I suppose, the darker times of this injury, because right now because there was a point about 6 months ago, and I mean, you probably remember me complaining about it at Pachecho. It's just everything hurt around my leg. It wasn't just the knee. Like, yes, there was a mechanical fault, but just everything around it hurt, and I couldn't work out why, and a lot of people told me to do this and do that or whatever else. And then do you know David Stroud? Trident manual therapy, I think it is. Stroudy, mate, legend. Really knows what he's talking about, and was able to sort of rationalize with me what I was going through, what I was experiencing, along with what's actually happening. It's not, what's in my head and what's not, sort of thing. And as a result, like I don't feel that pain my knee's cooked. Like there's certain things I just can't do. Like I went for a swim last week. Man, I got stung by a blue bottle on the ankle. This is a laugh, right? Got stung as I was walking out. Little blue bottle on the ankle. I was like, this hurts.
Summer's here.
And I just kicked. I was like, fuck, get it off. And I kicked. And as I've kicked, I've dislodged my leg, and then I've grabbed the leg, and you drop to the ground. It's just full Mr. Bean moment, So there's certain things I can't do, but thanks to Stroudy and Alessio, I'm not sitting in pain all the time. That's all gone. So being surrounded by the right people I'm very, very fortunate, And on top of that, knee injuries are pretty common in jiu-jitsu, especially once you reach a high level, especially with competitors as well. There's some nasty stuff out there, right? Like heel hooks and knee bars and toe holds. It's all just gnarly stuff. Not that nothing malicious happened to me. It was just a warm-up accident, unfortunately.
Well, probably years and years of training.
No. It's just, I was warming. I'll never forget it. Like, I was warming up with Xander, and we were just warming up. And there was a point earlier where he could have got an armbar, but he let it go because we're warming up, man. He was just moving around, and then I got this position where I sort of threw my leg around. And I went, I'm going to get the armbar. I'll let it go. And I turned my hips just to sort of come back to a guard, and my feet got caught. So basically my foot went right, my hips went left, and the knee went bang. Oh, but it was just bad luck, man. Yeah, very bad luck. And then over that 12-month period, there's an instability. So nothing's concrete, which is the biggest problem, but it looks like they're going to redo the ACL. They 100% have to do the meniscus. And once that's finished, it looks like there's still, post-lateral corner damage or something like that. So my LCL's still cooked. So I'm probably going to have to do ACL, LCL, and meniscus.
You've done a good number.
Yeah. No messing about, man.
You do everything well.
But you look at Richard. Richard did his ACL. Dio did his ACL. And Jap's done ACL. Jap's done it all. But luckily for me, I got to see, and I mean, no offense to Jap, I say this to his face, but he didn't do any of the working out. He's an idiot. He didn't do any of the rehab work. He didn't do any of the work, like the strength building. He didn't do any of that. So now I know that when I put on a De La Riva on Jap on his bad leg, it bends inwards a little bit. You know what I mean? So even though he's had the operation and the work's been done, he didn't rehabilitate properly. So there's still issues with his knees. Whereas Richard and Dio, they did all the work, and those guys haven't got problems with their legs.
Man, I think I'm no expert yet because I'm not that experienced with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I have a strong feeling that single leg stability work around the knee must be so valuable for anyone in there.
People don't know that.
The mats.
I agree with you.
Because you take an average person that doesn't do jiu-jitsu, single leg stability work is huge. It'll help them in so many ways of their life. But then when you train the way we train on the mats, it's like you'd have even more benefits from it.
I find that, this is going to sound silly, but jiu-jitsu seems to like degenerate the body as opposed to all the other work that I've been doing, which is to generate, like it fixes me as opposed to deteriorates. Does that make sense? So I find that what you do in jiu-jitsu is just so hard on the body that we should be doing, like all this strength work that I'm doing now. Like I wish I'd started this 10 years ago.
Yeah, I
probably could have avoided a lot more of my injuries over the last sort of nearly a decade as opposed. I mean, something like this just happens, right? But I feel like if I'd been doing that, like Richard, we were talking about this earlier. Yeah. Rich, if you're listening, man, start fixing your body. Yeah. Because Richard's been training as long as I have. We've been, Richard and I have sort of pushed each other along. Whereas he's now got a herniated disc, which is not a good thing. He needs to fix his body. Yeah. But if he'd been fixing his body for the last 7 years, and I'm guilty of this too, he might have been able to avoid this injury, or at least to this degree. Because there's some things you just can't avoid. But
lower backs and knees seems to be
it's a thing, right?
There. Yeah, especially when you do it for 10, 15 years.
And also, there's no core work, so it's like usually when you're on your back playing, you guard with your legs up, your hip flexors are doing all the work, man. And that just...
And you're not bracing, you mean, through the... Okay.
Through the lower, and just everything just falls apart.
Yeah. We'll have to get everyone in and do a strength and conditioning session again.
Mate, absolutely. God, that was funny.
That was real fun. I definitely want to try and do it again. I just, we'll see when we can fit it in.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think I know the boys enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely had a good crack at it for sure. Hey, this has been awesome. We could probably do this for another few hours, but I think we might try and do something back when you after your surgery and everything.
Yeah, cool,
when
dude. I'd like that.
To see the progression with your injury. It's been really fun. Thank you so much for coming in, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Cool, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
See ya.